So we have Szilvia Orbán, who I believe joined the call. Are you there, Szilvia?
Yes, hello.
Hi there. Okay, so hi. So Szilvia is test automation engineer, software developer in test at Erste Group IT, involved in testing George, I believe, I guess, because if we talk about net banking for an international group, it must be George. And she's presenting BDD and Cypress IO in testing a multinational net banking solution. So over to you, Szilvia, if you want to share your presentation.
Okay, so let me quickly share my screen and start the presentation. Play from start, and maybe the other way around, right? Share screen first. Okay. Can you see the presentation?
See it fine, thank you. That's good.
Okay, good. So yes, in the next presentation, it will be around 30 minutes. I will talk about our challenges in testing George. I will talk about in detail what is this net banking solution that we are developing there, and what challenges do we have there, what is my profession. But let's start with who am I? So as this is a virtual presentation, I would like to introduce myself a little bit more. I'm a cafe addict. I'm an inline skater. I'm also a dancer. I like to dance salsa, kizomba, bachata, any kind of dances until boogie woogie. I was also singing in a band and in a choir, and I love to sing karaoke. So if anybody is up to something like that, you can reach out to me. I'm a wife and mother of 2 sweet girls. I'm Cypress enthusiast and also BDD ambassador, and part of an agile development team as a squad tester of George. I'm working in the product squad, which I will also introduce a little bit later. I am the software test engineer of this squad. So basically that means quality analyst, solution quality professional, call it however you want. I'm also doing the automation part. So I'm also test automation engineer, also known as software developer in test. I'm sure a lot of you amongst the audience have similar titles. And I work at Erste Group IT, which is currently called Agile International. It will be Erste Digital quite soon, which is a software development company, and we are developing, surprise, surprise, for the Erste Bank group. And we have 2 development centers. One of them is in Vienna, the other one is in Bratislava. And we are working all remote since Corona lockdown in March, with full capacity, even a little bit more productivity than before. So what do? We build software solutions for the Erste Group, as already mentioned. This is my little team, product squad. We work in an agile setup, so we have this squad. We are following Scrum methodologies, and we use Behaviour Driven Development, also known as BDD approach, to make sure that the development team is on the same page as the business. So we are defining scenarios pretty precisely, and then we build the software. And we also continuously test, monitor, and refactor the code as well as the tests to improve it all the time. Now, what do? I formulate scenarios for the upcoming features together with the development team. And this is already creating the living documentation in Cypress. And I'm also finding test users and performing manual and explorative testing to catch bugs early. So we are trying to shift it as left as possible. We are also automating the scenarios already at the time of development to have executable specifications. I create automated tests in Cypress.io, and I'm also monitoring and fixing those tests. I'm learning all the time, and I'm practicing and trying to get better, and also mentoring the new hires or any other people within the company, or as in this presentation, even outside the company. So I'm happy to help anybody who wants to get started with Cypress or BDD, or if you have questions, just reach out to me. I constantly build, refactor, and improve or automated end-to-mock integration tests. So, who is George? I would like to have some feedback so that I know that you're still on the call. Anybody?
We have about 50 people on the call, so.
Okay, so I'm still online and
you're still visible. Yes.
Okay, so George is a retail net banking solution for now, but soon we're gonna have also George Corporate. We already started to hire people working on George Corporate, and there are still a couple of open positions also. We are currently in 6 countries. We have mobile and web platforms. We are currently on Android, iOS, and web, which in the code base is React.js. So George is already present in production in 4 countries with lots of users. Romania just celebrated 1 million users, and the other countries probably more than that. And we will be rolled out to Croatia and Hungary in the coming year. So it is already developed, but in a stage of family and friends at the moment. We have some challenges in testing George, I have to say. First of all, the 6 countries, this means different products and features for every country. It also means different backend implementations for the same feature, because the banks so the backend is not ours, it's on the bank side. We just have to put one front end on top of the different backends, so it's quite challenging sometimes. And also the test environments are outside of our control, and test users can also be changed by bank workers. So how did we overcome those environmental challenges? First of all, we switched to end-to-mock testing. This means we develop or automated tests for every feature in parallel to the development, and we are mocking the environments. We are mocking the environments in 2 ways. We have an internal tool to record and playback traffic from our system. This is something like Wireshark or Fiddler, but we just developed our own tool to record only those requests and responses which are related to George to make the testing easier. And we also have the opportunity to modify those sessions there, so it's a quite good tool. And the second version, how to mock those responses, is with Cypress mocking. So we are basically stubbing there. We are using static fixtures or dynamically changing mocks inside the steps. So we have some steps which are modifying those static fixtures. And we are developing the tests and build the mocks based on the specification, if the backend is not ready yet, which is the tricky part. So until 1 year ago, we were blocked if the backend was not ready. Now we just continue developing, and we develop against the mocks. Then last year we switched also our end-to-end test automation to Cypress, which is very good because we have now better collaboration between squad testers and regression testers. We have now dedicated test users for automation. That means they are not used for manual testing, they don't get changed, and they get normalized and set back to the initial state of them every day. Normalized means we change them to the language we want to use and stuff like that. Even if some environments are down, we can develop the automated tests based on the other countries. So we are not blocked with end-to-end automation, or even if the environment is down. So we can use the end-to-mock mocks. And we run the environment smoke test before we evaluate our end-to-end tests. So we know exactly when the backend is down and none of the tests could be executed because the environment was down. So why Cypress? I love Cypress because it is very fast. The guys who were working with Selenium and Java before, they said, oh my God, how fast is this? Especially those guys working in mobile automation, working with Appium, they are very surprised about the how fast this tool is. And it's very easy to learn. So we, as mentioned, we have our front-end code in React, which is also JavaScript. So for the JavaScript developers, it's very easy to learn. It's quite similar to the unit tests they are writing to cover the code. And it is also easy to learn for those people coming from like a Selenium automation background or any other automation framework. Even some of the POs, Scrum Masters, and business analysts look into the Cypress repo sometimes. They even try to write some tests. This is our Cypress dashboard that we have in George. So currently we have this switch here. We have end-to-mock and end-to-end tests, and we have them for every country, and we have them for every squad. Every squad has end-to-mock and end-to-end tests. And on this Cypress dashboard, you can see the end-to-mock and end-to-end tests. So end-to-mock tests by squad because they are written per squad, and the regression tests by country because regression testers are looking at the code and the product from another perspective. So they are making sure it works for that country exactly as the country wants it to have. And the squad is developing for all the countries the same functionality. So for us, it makes sense to check it if the same functionality works in every country. And for regression testers, if in their country everything works. So these are nightly tests, actually, the end-to-mock and end-to-end tests that we are running here, and that is shown on this dashboard. It's actually run twice a day, one of them overnight and one of them in the afternoon. And the results are also getting published to Slack channel every day. And in this channel, we can also discuss who is going to fix them, how to fix them, and if it is a bug or feature, stuff like that. Good. We have also end-to-end tests, which means the tests access the real API. It makes real requests and gets responses and validates the UI changes. For example, if we close term deposit of a saving product on end-to-end tests, then they really execute the closing on the test user. It gets sent to the country-specific API, and then we can verify what happened on the front end. So is the product really closed? Does the money go back to the current account and stuff like that? We could only mock that on the end-to-mock tests because it is not connected to the actual backend. And I can also check the account if it got closed and the money arrived. Yes. So end-to-mock tests, we have fixtures or sessions recorded by this internal tool. And for example, we have a request and you will get following response. As mentioned, we use BDD, so these are usually behind one step. So for example, we have given, we get this response from a request, and then we can check when I click here, then I have this result. It is good because we have more stable tests in the end-to-mock testing. It is quicker to execute, much quicker, and you don't depend if the country APIs are really working or not. Cons is that you cannot check the real response from the API, so we cannot do backend testing with end-to-mock tests. This is really just for the front end. So second part of our challenges in testing George. We have transformed into an agile setup just 1.5 years ago. So 2 years ago, it was fully the waterfall setup. And squad testers had to become multifunctional, and we even become a little bit a bottleneck. We have to functional test everything with manual testing and also write automated tests. And we also have to do non-functional tests, like we have to check accessibility, tracking, user experience, and everything. And often we need to decide if a bug is caused by front end or if it is caused by the external backend. The question, why do we do also manual and automated testing? The more automated tests we have, the more time we have for manual explorative testing, which is very good, and we can catch the bugs as early as possible. This is really our goal, to catch the bugs before it goes out to even the regression team, because then they don't have to create bug ticket, we don't have to retest it, they don't have to retest it, so it saves a lot of time. And the regression testers are outside of the squad, so they have it's the 4i perspective, so they have a completely different view. They are not in the refinement sessions like the squad. They don't know in advance. They don't talk it through 5 times. They see it as the users will see. So they don't get the instructions how to use it, don't get the manual, they just use it. If it's self-explanatory, then it's good. If not, then we screw up something. But of course, if it's something technical, then they can also have the description of that. So, and how did we overcome testing challenges within the squad? We are a development team. Testing is not only the responsibility of the tester. The whole team is responsible for the squad and the increment that we deliver in every sprint. And we are doing unit tests also, and unit test coverage needs to be as comprehensive as possible. So we try to cover 100% with unit tests. And on top of that, developers and testers evaluate together which features are most sensitive and which need to be integration tested. So we discussed it together with the team. We decided to go BDD because the hardest single part of building a software system is deciding precisely what to build. So we want to define it before we even write the first line of code. We don't want to write something that is not working or that is not what the customer wants. We want to avoid that. So I heard that we mentioned BDD already in the previous talk. So again, BDD is not a test automation tool. We are using here Gherkin syntax, that's okay. We are using it in our automated tests, but mainly BDD is about collaboration. So it is about making sure that everybody understands how that feature should behave. Who uses BDD? Basically, it's the business analyst, product owner. We are also talking to the customer and we do the requirements analysis together with them. And after the team sits together, we discuss again, business analysts, developers, testers, what needs to be developed, what is the acceptance criteria here. We often go back to the customer and check again, is this really what you want to have? Is this, if we have this acceptance criteria and we meet them, does it make you happy? So is this really what you want? And what needs to be tested? This is, again, another iteration on that. So maybe what else should we test? Okay, we define the happy scenarios with the customer, but what other, whatever validation, front-end validation and error handling and everything, accessibility, everything has to be tested here. We regularly have 3 Amigos meetings. And ideally, every scenario should be written together by the team, sometimes because of sickness or something, some people are missing, but at least 2-3 people together are writing the scenarios. And then the customer should approve them before we start the implementation. We are using TDD in practice all the time. So we are having the unit test first, then make the test pass, as one of my colleagues recently posted to LinkedIn, and then we refactor. Ideally, we also write the integration tests before we write the unit tests and the code. So ideally, we define the feature, write the Cypress tests, make them fail, we have the feature implemented, and then see them magically becoming green. Most of the time, in reality, it's not like that because, as mentioned, sometimes we don't have the backend, so we are developing against mocks, and then we have to slightly change our implementation or talk to the backend to make it really fit together, and then see the happy green tests passing everything. If you like podcasts, you can listen to my podcast about BDD. It's you can find it on my LinkedIn page. And also, these 3 tips for everybody so if you want to use BDD as a collaboration tool, it is very good to have deliberate discovery sessions about every new feature, and it's recommended to do example mapping. And then you should have either in the same meeting or in a separate meeting formulating scenarios, and with this creating the living documentation. And then the third step is only, the top of the cake to automate your scenarios. But a really important part is number 1 here, and maybe number 2 and 3, just not so important. Nice to have. So what is the living documentation that I mentioned already? It looks something like this in our case. So this is extracted from the Cypress case. As mentioned, we are using gherkin cucumber scenarios, so given and then. And you can see here there's executions of each scenario. We have tags here, so the tags means in which country we are going to execute this test. Smoke test is just like if you switch on the system, if it will smoke or still go. And the tests are all the tests. We have other tags like VIP for work in progress. We have @doc, which is just documentation. And here's an example from given when then scenario. So for example, if user sees a list of account statements, when you initiate statement download, then the download starts. This is a very basic scenario. We can run Cypress in the CI/CD pipeline. We are using TeamCity for that. And we can also run it manually. So we also do it on every new feature branch. Either start it on the TeamCity agents or you can start it locally. We have different environments. We have the development branch, we have fixed branches, we have the factory acceptance test branch for the regression testers. We have UAT branch for the country testers. And yes, we are supporting manual testing with this, and we are pretty often finding bugs with this. And then if you find a bug with Cypress, it can be easily used for retesting the bug fix also. Questions so far, or do you want to wait until the end of the presentation?
We can wait to the end. There's 4 questions already, or 5 now. So if we'll deal with those at the end of your presentation. Okay, good. So this is an example of our scenario on the repository. We have to say we have a feature, there's some description. This is basically a user story. And then we have ticket number here from Jira. We have background steps. This is all the time executed before the scenario runs. Background is executed before every scenario. So if I have here 10 scenarios, all of them will start with, I have an account with Roundup savings. And then if I go to this context, then I see target account list. If I go to that context, I should see 1 target saving account and lots of other tests. For those who are starting now with Cypress and this gherkin cucumber version of writing it, a given step is always defining a precondition. It could be something like go to a URL. This would be in Cypress language ci.visit, and then you type here https, when you go somewhere, this could be something like if button 1 exists and is visible and I can click it, then some other identifier should be visible. You can see some exact implementations here. I did not choose the most pretty implementations. I wanted to choose a part from our code which has some legacy implementations. Like you can see, you can use here CSS selectors. You can use also own written functions. If you want to have it, you can wrap some JavaScript functions around it. This is basically the same as this. So CY-get, data CY, roundup savings unavailable. This data CY has to be added to the front end, and it's very recommended to add this attribute to every element that you want to assert with UI Automator tool.
If you're running Cypress and you stop it, then Cypress has this selector playground, which is very nice when you're writing your tests. You just click on an element and you can see immediately if it has a data CUI or not, or how the Cypress can see it. Sometimes it's easier to be found by just CSS selector, but we prefer to have a data CUI for everything, because if you add data CUIs and change the design, your test will not break. Challenges here. Again, identifiers do change if you don't add data CUIs, but data CUIs have to be added to the front-end code and component level. This means I have to either touch the really George code or ask the developers, and sometimes it is even in the design system component, so then it is going to another squad. And if you change the data CUI on the front end, we have to change it in the Cypress too, obviously, if we are using them. As mentioned, we are also stubbing the backend, so we are mocking with Cypress, for example. We are using this CUI root, basically, but we did not like so many XHR logs, so we are basically using our own function here in the code, which we call server.addRoot. We just have to specify here which method we are using, which endpoint we are calling, and then the fixture that should be served as a response for if the front end is calling this endpoint. Yes, Cypress has limitations. Everybody who works with Cypress knows this, but for those who Cypress is new, I have to tell you the backside of the coin. You know, it's only JavaScript, it's only for web, it only works in Chrome and Electron. It started to work with Firefox and Edge. We are not using it yet so much, just sometimes locally, because, for example, Edge doesn't run on Linux servers, which we have, and doesn't run on our Macintosh computers, so only some of the colleagues can test on Edge who have Windows machines. And you can only automate one browser at a time, you can only have one tab at a time, and you can only assert one domain at a time. So if I'm starting in George domain, I cannot check if I get redirected to the homepage of the local country bank if there's some redirection. And there's also limited support for iframes. So because it is only web, we are using for our mobile automation Appium and Kotlin, which is basically the Selenium partner for mobile. It also uses BDD, so we can have some common scenarios, and they are executing these tests on simulator and on real devices too. Challenges here are, again, unique identifiers, and automation on iOS has turned out to be quite difficult. And of course, we have to make both the system under tests accessible and automatable. And yes, I think this is pretty much the end of my presentation so far. Thank you so much for your attention. If you have any questions, you can write me, you can find me on LinkedIn, and of course you can ask your questions.
Sylvia, we have a lot of questions on Slido, so I'll just share the Slido screen. Just let me know if you can see it.
I just stopped sharing your screen.
More questions. 8 questions. You're a record breaker today. You've got the most questions. So thank you very much for your presentation. So the first question from Carol: why E2M? Does it give good results? I think you touched on this in a couple of times in your presentations, but maybe to summarize again, why using E2M?
Okay. As mentioned, I'm working in a squad, and lots of the times we had the problem that the backend was not working. It's, as mentioned, outside of our control, and we started to have use this Wireshark and other recording tools to be able to develop. First of all, if we don't have the backend. And then we decided to run our tests also against these mocks, because if you are running it against a real environment, then it can happen that, for example, we used to have the Czech backend quite unstable, and for every 2 weeks, 3 days it was down, and it was very annoying to find out that all the tests are failing because there's no backend. So we want to prove to the countries that on our side everything is okay, and we want to stay confident even if the backend is down, and we can say to them, hey, front end is working, there's something on your side.
I saw George 4 years ago, and I also know it from Cheska, so I know that was a problem 4 years ago, so it's interesting to see how you
But actually, this is just for the squad, okay? Yeah. So end-to mock is in the squad, but we also have end-to-end tests in the regression. End-to-end tests we are running daily, but we are trying to fix them as we develop. And every 2 weeks, we are creating a new release train. We are calling it bill of material, and every BOM is tested with end-to-end tests also. And then they have to retest manually every failing test. So we also have end-to-end tests with Cypress.
Okay, thank you. So the next question from Onza is the pass rate always so optimistic? On your Cypress dashboard slide, you had almost everything passed. Is that usually the situation, or was that just a good day?
No. This is because these are the end-to mock tests. So this is sorry, I have set a timer for myself not to be over 30 minutes. So yes, the pass rates are always so optimistic because these are end-to mock tests. Again, if we don't change the mock, the test cannot break so easily. If some other squad breaks something in our code, we notice that immediately. And because we fix them all the time, every day a couple of tests are breaking, but we are fixing them. For the next day should be everything green again, but if something breaks, then again a couple of tests are failing. Of course, it happens when everything is red, like we try to make loading faster at the beginning, so sometimes we kill our recorded sessions, and then we have to add or remove some requests from the recorded session, and then all the tests are green again. But usually we are fixing them every day, so every day just a couple of tests are failing, and it's usually the new features which we are actually working on.
Thank you. So next question from Thomas. How many tests are using the mocks, roughly percentage? Does it take you a lot of time to keep them up to date? Or do you have some automated way of getting the mocks? Yes, I think I was asking myself this question as well, because the back end will change on some frequency.
Okay, so as mentioned, we have this recording tool, so we can record exact state of the current test users, but we prefer to use a very basic test user, which has only, say, one current account and nothing else, and we mock everything on top of that. So to make this maintenance as fast as possible, we are just mocking everything in the steps. So we have the fixtures in Cypress, and everything is mocked there.
Okay, but how often do you have to update the mocks, or do you regularly go back and just check the mocks? Check that the mocks are still the same as the back-end integration?
I think it's usually every 3-4 months when we have to update the recorded sessions, because we are also refactoring the login, as mentioned. So, for example, we used to make some calls when logging in, and now we are making them only when you go to a specific page. And if the old mocks don't have those calls, then they will fail some tests.
Okay, so next question from Pepper. Do you test security and performance as a part of your team testing in the squad?
We are doing common sense security and performance testing, but we are doing mainly functional tests. We have external companies doing the load tests and security tests on the UAT level, so after we deliver it and before it goes to production. So it is handled by the countries, basically.
Okay. And the next question from George, I guess Yes. Okay. What is your biggest competitor on the market you operate? Not quite sure.
I think every bank in Europe which is developing for more countries. Probably Raiffeisen, I don't know, a couple of other banks in
I get it.
Europe.
Because when George came out, it was wow, innovative, the best net banking solution around. I guess the other banks are catching up now with George, no?
I think so. Yeah, for sure. I think probably they don't have so many countries as we do. So it's nice that we have 6 countries and we are unifying them in a way from the front end. But every bank and every fintech in banking, like we have now open banking, PSD too, so we're going to have lots of competitors there.
Yeah. I just think one point I would like to emphasize from my side is that each of those countries is quite different. Exactly. The back ends are different, the business is different, the processes are different. So it's a real big challenge for George to actually unify that through one interface.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so next question from Honza. Honza's a popular name in the Czech Republic, so yes, it might be the same one. What's your approach for tag management? Do you use any policy or rules, or is it free ride for every tester?
I have mentioned it in the slides that we have, for example, we are only running in the nightly those tests which have the @test tag, and we are also specifying the country, because otherwise you could not know against which backend or backend mock to run them. So @test and the country name is mandatory, everything else is optional. You can have your own tags, like you can tag the Jira ticket number, you can tag needs front-end fix, or needs back-end fix, or needs Cypress fix, or flaky test, whatever you want.
Okay, so from Jude Bro, how hard is it to maintain Cypress test suite collections in the long run?
How do you mean, like in updating it, or I don't really understand this question.
So how much effort do you have to put into maintaining the test suites? How often do those tests break?
We are maintaining it all the time. So every day, a couple of tests break, we fix them, and yeah, we continuously maintain it.
You mentioned there that the identifiers change. That's one cause of the test getting broken. Is there some other causes you deal with?
Yes, but we are working in the squad, so we know what is going on in our code. So that's not the that's like my daily job. So if the developers are updating something in the front end, then I have to update the Cypress, obviously. And that's quite okay. I would say it's not a bigger effort than doing the manual tests for those tickets. So I'm just starting Cypress, it fails, I'm adjusting, okay, manual test done, and that's it.
Okay, that's a reflection. You've got a proper all-team approach that's continuous. Yeah, the development and the tests are continuous in alignment. Yeah. Next question from Marcel. Are you skipping the given statement in your scenarios when it is covered by test suite setup statement? No checking whether preconditions are still there?
No, I mean, if you put the given statement into the background, it gets executed before every scenario. So if I say, given I'm logged in with the user who has roundup savings or whatever, then I can just say in the scenarios, when I go here, click here, something should happen. And this scenario will then execute in the nightly run, so that given I have this user, when I go here, then I click. Next, again, given I'm logged in with this user. So we are not skipping the given statement. Even if it's in the background, it is run before every test.
Okay. Next question from Claudiu. Have you considered using Test Cafe? It has some benefits that Cypress doesn't have yet.
Okay. No, we did not evaluate Test Cafe yet. It is actually outside of my control, but I will ask my test manager. We are actually constantly evaluating testing tools and different methodologies. We used to have recent is Tosca, and now we have everything in Cypress, and maybe in the future we're gonna use, I don't know, Taiko, Tescafe, whatever. Selenium, I don't know if I would like to go back. I haven't used it in the last 3 years, but before that it was quite a pain.
Yeah, but this is one of the big discussions at the moment, Selenium, Cypress, what's next? So
I'm sure the testing tools will be evolving, and it's we are constantly evaluating it if it's worth to switch to another testing tool. Could be that we are 2 years from now we are rewriting everything in another testing tool. That's what we did. We have rewritten all our Tosca tests in Cypress.io. So could happen that we switch again in next year or whatever.
I have a question just from me. What made you switch to using BDD? What was the big pain that caused you to go, that enabled you to go that route, let's say?
BDD in this company started from Ivan Burda, one of our business analysts, and maybe from front-end side, Szilvia Orbán is pushing very much. And from testing side, me and other testers like Gabriel Charovsky. So we are using BDD because we realized that sometimes if we just write in plain English a feature, then the bank might understand something different than we do. If they say, okay, if backend sends you overdraft, you have to display it on the front end, and what if they send it in different format than we expected? So it really has to be defined. Before we were using BDD in the formulation and delivery discovery sessions, we had lots of late fixes. You know, in the waterfall, you develop a feature. After it is developed, you test it, and then you have to kind of revert it and rewrite it. And BDD just helps to avoid those scenarios. It's very important to define exactly, to build the right thing, and then you don't have to revert and write it again, and it just saves so much time.
Have you got involved in the BDD, even the country product owners, if there's such a thing? Is it done with the countries, or is it done just within the George squad?
Basically, the business analysts are talking to the country representatives first, and then they come up with the first mocks of the scenarios. And then we sit together as a team, and then we define them exactly. We formulate them in this given vendor scenarios. We add negative scenarios. Everybody is adding their thoughts, like, what if I do like this? What if this edge case, that edge case? And we write down every scenario. And then we go back to the customer, and then they say, hey, but in this edge case, it should behave differently. And then we say, okay, aha, cool that we didn't develop it like this. Let's develop it the other way. So it really saves lots of work.
Okay, sounds interesting.
I recommend to everybody.
Okay, Szilvia. So no more questions. Thanks very much for your talk.
Thank you.
Used up the whole 45 minutes. If you would like to step over to our virtual coffee corner.
Yes.